Hey friends, my name is Joe. I've been leading church production teams for the last 7 years, and today's video is a little bit different. I want to walk you through one of my biggest production failures so that you can learn from it and hopefully not have to go through it yourself. Now, this story is based on a decision that I made that if I could go back and redo, I would. But the lessons I learned from this decision has helped me become a better leader. Let's dive in. So a few years ago, we were trying to expand our ability to send multi-channel audio from one campus to another. We were trying to expand on our 8 or 16 channels and get to about 64 channels. Now, a few times a year, we broadcast a live baptism weekend where we show all of the baptisms happening across all 5 of our campuses, and all of our worship teams are synced during this time, and they're all playing together. And we wanted to be able to send more of the tracks and vocalists from our broadcast campus to the other campuses. It would also open up some really cool possibilities of being able to start remotely mixing a live broadcast. Let's say if we wanted to broadcast from one of our video venues instead of our broadcast campus, we'd be able to send all of those tracks over to our broadcast campus to mix out of our broadcast audio suite there. Now, after doing some research, I found what seemed to be the perfect solution to this, and that was using Dante Domain Manager to pass the audio between all of the campuses. Now, I'm Dante Level 3 certified, and I'm also a former IT guy, and so I read through the documentation, went through all the videos that Audinate provides, just explaining what the product is and how to use it, talked to the team, worked with our IT team, and after some discussion back and forth, I decided, let's go for it. So, bought the license for Dante Domain Manager, spun up a virtual server on one of our engineering computers, and started implementing it. The first campus went flawlessly, like perfectly. Everything really quickly joined up to the Dante domain, and it was all stable, and it was great. Then we went and rolled it out to a second campus. Again, extremely stable. At one point, I even streamed 64 channels of audio from our Gilbert campus to our Queen Creek campus and did a virtual sound check that way. I was blown away by the results I was getting. The audio was pristine. It worked amazingly. I was so stoked about this solution. But at some point, the honeymoon had to end. We started having audio glitches that would eventually lead to complete audio drops or equipment not passing any audio at all, or even sometimes not being able to patch from one piece of equipment to another. This became such a big issue that we started having to have support calls with Audinate. Both one of our IT guys who specializes more in networking and myself would have to hop on these calls, and we double checked all of our settings on our end to make sure that we were running our networks the way that Audinate recommended that we were. And Audinate was still kind of stumped and wasn't really able to help us with these issues. And again, these weren't minor inconveniences. We're talking about audio drops. And unfortunately, they would tend to happen right before service. One time we made it through band rehearsal, then a service run through, and 10 minutes before service started, audio dropped out completely. We ended up having to hold doors for 10 or 15 minutes while I tried to fix the problem, not knowing if I would ever get audio back up. The final straw came one Sunday morning when one of our campuses was having clocking issues. The other campus wasn't passing audio at all and ended up having to run a bunch of analog lines to the stage just to get an acoustic set up. And I think we also had to run those lines back to our amps from front of house in order to get audio through the PA at all. We had reached the breaking point. Dante Domain Manager was not working for us at all. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying that Dante Domain Manager is a bad product. It's quite possible that our networks are just configured in a way that does not allow for Dante Domain Manager to function the way it's supposed to. Again, we had double checked all of our settings on our end and we couldn't find anything that stood out to us. But it was clear that Dante Domain Manager in our environment did not operate the way it was supposed to, and we did not have enough time and energy and resources to continue tracking these issues down. I decided we had to pull the plug. Now, it would be really easy to stop the video here and say, yep, I put a solution in place, it was a dumb call, I should have never done it, and move on, right? You made a mistake, move on, right? But there's more happening here than just I made a bad call and I need to walk it back, right? Like, There's a lot of emotion being wrapped up in this. This wasn't a cheap product. It was quite costly. And a lot of our eggs and our team's time and resources went into implementing this. And so it's not just as simple as going, oh, my bad. There's emotions wrapped up in this, lots of ego, pride, and, obviously at that point I start questioning my own abilities as a production director. So that day when I made the decision to stop using this product and we would have to go back to what we were doing previously was a really hard day. I think a lot of times it can be really easy to just kind of bury our heads in the sand and not go back and analyze decisions that we've made as leaders. I think our ego gets wrapped up in our decisions and we go, I don't really want to acknowledge this or own this. I just want to, as quietly as possible, just roll this back and just hit the reset button. But that's not where growth happens. And I firmly believe that we need to be able to look back at our decisions and go, okay, that wasn't great. What did I learn from this? And how do I avoid this moving forward? So in my reflection, there were 2 lessons I learned. If you're seeing this and watching this and you're thinking about using Dante Domain Manager, there's one thing I would say that you should just keep in mind if you're looking at implementing that as a solution. Unless you have complete control over that network with minimal traffic on it, be careful. In our case, the flexibility came at the expense of stability, and I cannot afford to make that trade. The second lesson, and honestly the bigger lesson, is a leadership lesson. In the moment that I had decided to roll this change back, I had to make some decisions. Do I blame other people and just continue to blame Audinate and continue to just push the blame onto them? Or do I just own the fact that this decision was not the right decision for our church? Now, while all of these decisions are popping into my head, I'm also getting a bunch of other thoughts, which I have obsessive compulsive disorder, so that's probably not helping me. But I'm wondering, what is my team going to think of me? Are they going to think less of me as a leader? Am I going to lose trust, in the solutions that I recommend to my boss and boss's boss and boss's boss's boss? The desire for self-preservation in this moment was extremely tempting. My ego is screaming at me like, don't do it. Don't look stupid. They're going to think less of you. By making that decision, I decided to forego my ego in spite of what I might look like. I decided to choose to protect the trust I had spent years building over what I may look like. I knew that even though it would be painful, by owning this decision, I would be making an investment into our culture that was positive. Everyone on my team knew it was the wrong call. If I were to double down in that moment and keep pushing forward, I would have broke trust with my team completely. I don't know about you, but I have worked for leaders who clearly made the wrong call, and I've known that they've made the wrong call, and I've known that this isn't working, and they've doubled down and they've pushed forward, and I don't want to be that leader. A friend of mine once told me leadership is lonely, and I don't think I fully understood that concept until I was in this moment where I felt alone, where I had to humbly walk something back and say, I made a bad call and I'm sorry. But I believe that's where character gets tested. Ego might protect your image, but humility will protect your investments in your relationships. That day I told my team, my bosses, and I even told my wife that I got it wrong. And thankfully my humility was met with grace from my team, from my bosses, and even my wife. But even if they hadn't responded that way, even if everybody was furious or they thought less of me, it was still the right call to make. We can't control how everybody's going to respond to news like that, but we can control who we are in that moment. Humility builds trust. Ego builds resentment. Trust is slowly earned and quickly lost. Choosing humility in the moment might sting, but in the long term, it builds something far more valuable. Let me ask you, have you found yourself in a situation like this before? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your story. I think there's a lot of growth that can happen by opening up conversations like this. If you liked this video and found it valuable, consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.